race as the big accomplishment. And so we want to make sure that the viewers that are going to watch and enjoy the race understand, that these drivers all look at this season as a whole. It's not just one race for a championship. So we're looking forward to delivering that. We've had a great 20 weeks already and look forward to capping it off.
I think for me, it's just, this year has been incredible with the competition, and we're race fans too, and watching these guys go at it, pit crews go at it, teams go at it. It's just been a lot of fun. And then coming here, there's 4 guys that, I have so much respect for. They've all earned their way here. I don't know how you pick a favorite at this point. I don't know how all year long you've been able to pick the winners of races. It's just been that kind of year, and I don't see why that's going to change. The other thing is there's just so much enthusiasm around the sport. When you go to racetracks, you see that, you feel it. It's just a lot of positive vibes going on right now. And it's fun to be part of it, fun to watch it, and it's to see guys just lay it all out on the line. Saw Ross do it last week. Who's willing to do what, to win these championships, and just can't wait to get it started.
Excuse me. There's not a whole lot to add to what these two have said. I will say, Jeff mentioned it, I think while the storylines on the racetrack have been great, the venues have perhaps been even better. It's been just a great reminder of what the sport was at its peak. We go to these tracks now and they're all full. It was sold out last week in Martinsville, and even from the TV booth you can feel it. You can feel the energy, you can feel it build all Sunday morning. Here it's sold out again out here is what we've been told. So I just think that's part of it. It's the drivers are delivering, the races are delivering, but the fans are really delivering as well. They're coming out, filling up the stands, and it's made for just an exciting year. And I agree with Jeff, handicapping both Saturday and Sunday, I think is next to impossible. I think it's going to be a moment. I don't know what the moment will be or when the moment will happen, but I think it's going to come down to literally a moment where somebody decides to either win or lose it. And it's going to be, I didn't see what was going to happen last week ever, probably in my life, so I'm not going to try to predict what we perhaps will see this week.
Yeah, I just hope for the momentum to keep going. An amazing weekend this past weekend, two incredible days with some very compelling moments and storylines, and I hope that we continue to see that this weekend. I expect the drivers to feel the pressure and the enormity of the moment and the seriousness of the situation, and that should play out on the racetrack in a pretty compelling way. So this year's most years are really relatively predictable in terms of what you expect to happen on the racetrack, and this year's been everything but that. So I expect that to continue.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We'll open it up for questions. We're going to start right here with Jeff Clark.
What do you guys think is, from what you've seen in your careers, the closest comparison to the buzz around everything that's happened after Chastain this week? I mean, it's just blown up everywhere. Is there anything that is close?
You've been around the longest, go ahead.
That's a compliment. I haven't, I don't know. Number one, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I've never seen anything that I could compare it to. I'm not talking about what happened after, but when it was happening, I'll be blunt with you, I didn't know what the hell was happening. My initial thought was the throttle hung on the damn thing, and oh my God, what's happening? That was my initial millisecond thought. Then quickly realized what he was doing, and I was just taken aback by it. And even today, I wish I could replay it, what I was looking at live. I mean, it's crazy. As far as the buzz after, I don't know. I don't know that we've, in recent history, we certainly haven't had anything that had that much buzz to it. It was a hell of a moment. It was one of the sport's biggest moments. That's just the truth. And I texted Ross Sunday night and I said, man, you created one of the sport's biggest moments. I hope you recognize what you did and how proud you should be. It was amazing to watch, and it just out of the box thinking can take you places, get you in trouble too, right? Who the hell would have thought to do that? And he just did it like he was perfectly comfortable doing it. Like, this is just normal. Why won't you guys do this? That's what it almost looked like. And but I haven't seen anything like it, and I can't compare it to the buzz to anything else.
I think it's, you know, when Richard Petty wins 200, you know, obviously, you know, that's a massive milestone, but what kind of impact that had on us in pop culture, that it's similar to some moments like that. So, you know, Ross should be really credited, because only those unique things can really take you outside of your own bubble and your own world. And for a moment, this week, we were in a lot of places we typically don't exist. So that was incredible for us, and hopefully that, you know, that there's some momentum and ripple effect from that lasts for quite a while. But I would, you know, there's a lot of incredible, wild-looking crashes and moments that are compelling. But to me, like Jeff said, it kind of ranks up there as one of the greatest moments. You know, that kind of similar, I guess, to like the Doug Flutie pass, you know, in college, playing for Boston College, that they used for so many years. Is just this really cool moment of what could be possible. And I think that's really similar.
Okay, we'll go to Jordan right here.
Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic. Your colleague Parker Kligerman announced last week he's got a full-time ride in the Xfinity Series. It's been a struggle for him to kind of get that. I was wondering if you guys could speak on that, to see him finally get that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier for Parker. He is great on pit road. He works very hard on television, and every time he gets an opportunity, he absolutely makes the most out of it. His commitment to that 75 truck proved that he took this little program up in Tennessee, and they got better and better and better and better, and he finally won that race, and I think none of us were shocked to see him win. You know, I think he's the perfect example when we look at the field here for the championship. You know, he had these opportunities as a young race car driver, and perhaps either just maybe too young for the moment, or just it just didn't all align, is the best way to put it. So it's great when you see someone like Parker, who has put the work in, get a second chance. And I think that 48 car, we see a lot of different drivers in it. It's an interesting owner, right? He's great for the sport. He's an exciting guy to be around. It's good for the sport. It brings different eyeballs in. He always has different partners on there. So I'm excited for Parker, and I believe we could easily be talking about him next year at this level. I really believe he could, road courses for sure, and if they continue to elevate that program, I think he's gonna be a threat to go pretty deep in the playoffs.
Okay, we'll go to Bob.
Bob Hawkers, Fox Sports. Jeff, I want to ask you, as part of the Drivers Council, there's a lot of talk about how maybe the drivers didn't have all the information that, like, what NASCAR was working on. I'm curious, do you have any sense of what was the hesitancy about, you know, from NASCAR about trying to make sure all the drivers knew, or even, you know, us here, or the public know how much they were working on the car before they got to test the rear changes?
There was no hesitancy on their part. All the information was there. Some drivers consumed it and some drivers didn't, but all the information was there.
Okay, we'll go to Zach.
Zach Sternal with NASCAR.com. For Dale, having 3 cars in this championship I know it's a huge deal for junior motorsports, but Noah was pretty vocal this morning about his feelings toward Ty. I know there's been plenty of discussion around what happened on Saturday night. As the owner of 3 of these 4 cars against him this weekend, what's been the message to the team, and how do you perceive what should happen on Saturday night?
My message to the team is that whatever happens on the racetrack, whatever happens to try to go out there and win the championship, that we only do it if we can walk out there with our heads up, proud of how we did it. We should never try to go out there and try to do anything that we'd be ashamed of, and it's not worth it. So it's not worth it for me, anyways. I've won enough championships. I don't need one that badly. But you know, for the drivers, I think they all have different things on their minds. They're completely different drivers in personality and age and their past, their future. So they're all going to race uniquely. I think, you know, Noah's amazing for the sport. He's been running around here, you know, shooting promos like a wrestler all day. And I think that that's a really great thing. You know, as long as it doesn't go into a personal space that makes anybody uncomfortable, or as a personal jab at Ty, I'm fine with all the talk as long as it's, good and clean for the most part. But, I don't have any, real instructions for them. They all have to go out there and see how the cars drive and race and see what they're capable of. And when it comes down to it, I mean, last year was a great example, with Daniel of what I think it should come down to. And that would, if it's a couple guys meeting on each other, win or lose, I'd be thrilled to be any part of what we saw last year.
Right in the middle there.
Justin Schulich and Tires. So Jeff, Dale, since you guys have driven, I wanted to get your perspective on this because Ty said he doesn't want to be the guy to be booed. Ty was very remorseful in his interviews today, and especially where he took out 2 teammates at Martinsville. He's faced a lot of controversial moves this whole year. So if he were to approach you, what would your advice as drivers be to Ty on how he should handle Saturday and the next few years, both with competitors and with fans?
I talked to Ty today. I told him that, I think the more I think the more that he can speak from his heart instead of the talking points, the better. And when he'll find a balance over time on how to do that. He comes into, the media scrums, and he has messaging that he's been equipped with. It's valuable, it's good information, but it's when he can mix a bit of that message with what he's genuinely feeling, I think it'll be much better received. That's a challenge that just he'll learn over time. And I don't want to see anybody go through anything that's hurtful or, I almost feel bad for him to have so much put on him today in the media, but, some of it's deserving, but at some point, you got to allow the guy to make amends or make change or move in a good direction, and that doesn't happen overnight. But I think that, he gets a lot of instruction and a lot of tutoring on how to handle these certain scenarios, and I think once he, the more of the real Ty we see, I think the better that'll be for him. When he sits down and talks to the media, he can be really honest and open about how he feels about this situation, because I'm sure that those feelings that he has are relatable for all of us. I'm sure he has remorse or regret. There's no possible way he could. And so I think once he gets comfortable with speaking about those things instead of being more so robotic about it, it'll be better for him. But what he did this past weekend was awful, but it's not career defining at all. It's just something he'll learn from.
Yeah, it's part of the process, and what's difficult about being an athlete is that you have to have the egotistical, selfish, only care about yourself attitude at the right time. And when do you turn that off and when do you turn that on? And that's very difficult. And for a young man that's aggressive anyway by nature, that is extremely driven and wants to make stuff happen, it's hard for him to turn that off, right, and turn the other part on. And he'll learn how to do that over time. Most drivers do, but that's a difficult thing for some people to do, is just to say, all right, here's this personality when I'm out of the race car, and here's this personality when I'm in the race. Joey Logano is a great example. I mean, there's not many people that can do it as well as Joey Logano. He's a master at it, and he's won championships doing it. But the kid's 20 years old, just turned 20 years old. Joey had to learn how to do that too. We grade Joey off of who he is today. He wasn't that same guy 15 years ago. So he's having to learn how to do that, and he's doing it right in front of all of us. And he's doing it driving for his grandfather, and he doesn't get any breaks because of that. And it's clearly he's made some mistakes, and he's got to own them. He's got to own them. He's got to, I did it, I screwed up, I messed up. And if he does that, then he can learn from it. You never learn if you won't admit it. you'll never learn. So, in talking to him today, seems like he's had a lot of time to reflect and understand how that affected not just him. There's so many people that affected. But again, in that moment, he was thinking Ty, which is why he's won a lot of races already in his young career, because he's thinking, right, he didn't at this point have the ability to take a step back. So my advice to him would be, number one, own it, learn from it, move on, but then apply it. At some point, you can't keep saying, I'm sorry. At some point, you gotta fix it.
We'll go to Greg in the front.
Hey, Greg and Go Forbes. Excuse me, Dale. You're a lot of things. You're a team owner, a dad, an entrepreneur yourself, but you're also a journalist. How do you step back from when you're in the broadcast and you're in the journalist role? How do you step back? Because you've got a 75% chance of winning this thing on Saturday. And maybe Rick, you can answer this, because maybe you want to bring some of that to the booth. I mean, how do you balance that?
I can make a really easy answer. He's actually not broadcasting the Xfinity race.
Yeah.
He'll be on the box for one of his teams. He's actually not gonna broadcast.
Okay, so that eliminates, but in the past, how have you had to do that step away?
It's tough. It's tough because your drivers will intentionally wreck other drivers. They'll wreck each other. They'll say things that you don't agree with, or that don't line up with your opinion. So there's a balance, and I'm probably guilty of listening to the viewers a lot about their opinion of what they prefer from me in those moments. I want to get it right. I want to be fair and honest. So a lot of times I have to go home and say, to a driver at Junior Motorsports, man, I know you're ticked off, but I really had to call it straight. I had to tell people what was really happening, because if I say anything favorable in a moment when you were clearly wrong, I have no more credibility in the booth. So, but for this particular instance, it's not fair to my booth mates for me to be in that moment. So I'm much more comfortable on the pit box this weekend. I would rather be in the booth, but under the circumstances, for them to be able to call the race that I think everybody deserves, it's probably best for me to not be a part of it. And and I'll be able to be wearing the car we're at. But I love the opportunity to be up there. I know that it bends the ears a little bit of some of our viewers to have an owner in the box, but I feel like that I've done a good job of calling it pretty straight.
I just want to add to that. I think both Junior and Jeff do an incredible job of calling it the way they see it. And there's many examples when Junior just mentioned some of his drivers do something out there that may be questionable. He's the first one to call it out. And he does it as a broadcaster, just like Jeff, when his son is out there. I don't know how he's able to do it, but he calls it Harrison. It's amazing that he can separate being a dad in those races where, an incredibly proud father would be boasting what their son's doing out there, but he is a broadcaster. And I think they both do an excellent job of separating being a broadcaster and then the other roles that they carry.
Yeah, listen, I'll add, I think he would be fine this weekend. I've known him a long time. I'm actually the opposite. I'm thankful he's not in the booth, not for that reason, but for the time and effort it takes to be an owner, to come down here and enjoy it as an owner. Because I have no doubt if he was up there, he would be analyst version of himself, and I think what we hope on Saturday is we get to watch him be the owner version of himself. So it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna have as much fun watching him squirm as I am watching the racing on the track. So.
I'll be miserable.
If one of his drivers wrecks another driver, he's the first one we're going to interview. I'll tell you that.
Yes. What happened?
Okay, we'll go to Cole and then to Jerry.
Cole Guzman with the Arizona Republic. For Dale, we've got 2 former champions, 2 first-timers, and a whole lot of youth in this championship tour. As an advocate for the sport, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the complexion of the drivers in this round and what it means for the future moving forward.
Yeah, when I first came into the broadcast booth with my teammates here, we were spinning this idea that there was a youth movement, and you had you had Chase and Blaney and a couple of the guys that were starting to have opportunities, driving great race cars. And Harvick and some of the veterans were taking it a little personal that we would even, consider anyone a threat but them, right? And they were right. It took a couple years before this generation or younger group of drivers really started to get wins and started to take some of that real estate. And so here we are. It's a bit of we're in the middle of a bit of a turnover to where we're looking at Joey Logano as the veteran of the group and the guy with the most, tools in the toolbox in terms of, mental toughness and so forth. But I guess it's something we were hoping or predicting or willing into existence years ago that's finally come into reality, and it's exciting because unfortunately see some of the older guys phase out. I was a part of that experience, and it's just always going to be one or two guys kind of moving on to a new chapter in their lives. And you hate to see some of those guys go because you enjoy them being a part of the race, and you enjoy calling them around the racetrack and what they can do and what they're about. But a lot of young guys coming up. It's exciting. It's exciting for us and for the sport. You're seeing a lot of guys that are getting opportunities to be competitive and making some real noise.
Jerry Jordan, Kick'emTires.net. Jerry Jordan, Kick'emTires.net. Dale, I talked to Justin Allgaier earlier, and he was saying back in February, he said, I sat in one of these chairs very similar to this, and people laughed at me because I said that Junior Motorsports could have 3 or even maybe 4 cars in the championship round here at Phoenix. And he was like, no one took me seriously, but we're here. We've got 3, 75% chance. He said, we're stupid if we don't come away with the championship this weekend. How nervous, since you were talking about being on the box, how nervous are you going to be with your guys battling out with one another at the end of the race? And what do you hope they do on the track to bring home a championship for your organization?
Well, I just hope they don't wreck each other or ruin it for one another. The 54 car and Ty's, he'll have an amazing car, great speed, amazing talent as a driver. He'll be hard to beat. And my worst fear is us bouncing off each other there behind him, trying to get to him and just not giving each other a chance. And so, yeah, it's not fun. It's nauseating to sit there and watch the race, and especially as it whittles down to that final stage, and you either see a championship right there in front of you about to happen, or you're starting to realize the reality of the situation that you're not going to win it that day. It's difficult. It's kind of hard to explain how that can be a miserable experience, but it is. And then when one wins, I've been in that situation where you have one driver that's realizing something amazing, and then you have another driver that's equally as disappointed. And so you're wearing both emotions at the same time. I remember when Elliott Sadler lost to Byron, he had schooled and helped Byron and tutored him all year, and then we go to Homestead and he lost, and you could sense, he was in a position where he felt like he might have lost his last opportunity, and he didn't know what might be there for him in the future to get so close again. So that was tough. As tough as it was fun to watch William or any of our other drivers win. So it's great problems to have, but it can be interesting for sure. They all laughed at me when I picked all 4 of my drivers to make at the start of the playoffs. They thought I was just playing favorites and just showing my bias, but I was 3 out of 4. I think that's actually the best out of anybody at this table.
And you were showing bias.
Plus, you were wrong. You didn't get all 4 in.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do the last 2 questions here. We'll start with Luis.
Luis Torres, Motorsports Review at Authority of Finish. This is a question for Dale. Of course, you have your 3 drivers with Allgaier being here for a long time, but also Josh Berry, who you've advocated for many, many years, up to a decade. Do you think how special it would be if he were to get it done, considering the journey you have from limited opportunities in the Xfinity level before getting that full-time opportunity this season?
Yeah, it's incredible. I remember, seems like a year ago, we were all just about in tears talking about how we were gonna go run full time with Josh. And you know, how emotional that was for him just to know that he was gonna get a real chance to run an entire season and see what could happen. And, it's, you know, he's done a good job of just seizing opportunities, such as the one that presented itself in Vegas to get to this moment. And there's been some times when I think we should have ran better, we could have ran better. We probably didn't do any favors, do Josh and the team any favors announcing that his crew chief was gonna become the GM next year. And we released the person that was in that position, so it really put a strain on the company and that team in a really an opportune time. So that was probably poor management on my part, but you know, I feel like that they were able to kind of get through that, whatever setback or whatever that how that might have affected them. And they're in a great position. So the great thing too is that Josh, like all the other drivers, know their future. He's not racing, you know, day to day, week to week anymore. He can go into this experience knowing what next year looks like, and I think that's comforting for him. And, so he can just focus on trying to do what he needs to do Saturday.
Okay, we'll finish up on the left here.
This is for Steve and Jeff and Dale. Kenny Sargent with Speed Freaks. And Steve, I think the statute of limitations is over at this point, but can you go back and think of something close that you may have asked your driver to do that may have resembled what we saw Sunday at Martinsville, something crazy, bonkers that you may not have said before? And Dale and Jeff, was there ever a time your crew chief was in your ear, asked you to do something, you said, okay?
So I will admit, the one thing that it reminded me of was when we went to Daytona and had a tandem draft. Like when this phenomenon came out that we could really connect bumpers. It was, I think, our first year together, and I'm blessed to have this guy who was so good at plate racing, and now we have to go find a buddy and ride around bumper to bumper. And that was probably, I mean, that's what I would equate it to, because that is as far from like organically racing. You know, it's one thing to be in a pack, but when it turned into tandem, I think crew chiefs were asking drivers to do things that probably was over the line of what we should ask somebody to go do at 180 or 190 miles an hour. But I've listened to all the radio and looked at all the data. If there was a plan, not many knew about it, but Ross had a great plan apparently, because he pulled it off. There's a lot of things that made it work that I don't know if it would work anywhere else. You know, there's an extra gear available at Martinsville. There's all these things that made this car work. I'm not sure he was asked to make that move. I think that was all Ross, it appeared to me, from everything I've seen.
I didn't know if you were talking about Saturday or Sunday. To be honest with you, I was like, man, I can't remember if you ever told me to wreck somebody.
You try to tell him you did once at Richmond.
Huh?
You try to defend it once.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't think of anything that, you know, that you know, crew chief would have ever asked me to do that would have been like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But, you know, yeah, the tandem drafting, there was one race in Xfinity Series where it was kind of getting going in there, and I refused to do it. I didn't care if we got lapped. And my crew chief wasn't real happy with that, so we had a battle there, and we got lapped almost.
You know, the only thing I can think about is when the rules used to be completely open and we would go to Daytona and we first started learning about how soft we could get in the back and how stiff we could get on rebound with the shocks. And you would come off turn 4 and hit that bump, and you weren't sure if you were going to make it back around or not. The rear tires would literally come off the ground for just a little bit, and if you didn't do it just right, you were pointing the wrong direction, and if you survived, they just gave you more. They just kept giving you more and more and more and more until you just said, "Uncle, enough, I can't do it." But there's, I mean, I gotta be honest, guys, there's no way in hell if Steve would have said, "Hey Jeff, I need you to do this in turn 3 and 4 at Martinsville," I'd have been like, "You do it. Like, you get in there and do it." Like, I wouldn't have even considered to do that. Of course, I'm a little old for video games, but I don't, sorry, no offense, but I just, to me, there's nothing I can compare that to. There's nothing that I've seen or certainly done that I can compare that to. And I've never had a crew chief or anybody asked me to do something that was that far out of the box.
I will add, while that was amazing, it should be celebrated, I think that I'm definitely guilty of this, that we all become numb at what these guys do every week. You know, like 185 miles an hour at 9 a.m. at Michigan seems normal now, which is absolutely not normal. So that's what I think moving forward, that's what I hope the Ross move does, is not just new eyes like Dale had mentioned, and it is captivating video. But I'm hoping we can continue to just remind everybody, while that was without a doubt the most extreme we've probably ever seen, I don't want to take away from just what they're gonna go do at Phoenix. I mean, what these drivers do week in and week out, we all travel with them, so we probably get used to it, but we never should. I mean, it's pretty impressive, the decisions they have to make and the timing they have to figure it out in.
I think we also learned a lot about Ross Chastain in those two corners, because I think you see just how hungry and how badly he wanted to take his team to the championship floor. And he was willing to do something that no one ever had thought of or tried before to do it. So I think that taught us a lot about what Ross Chastain is made of.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your
Hey,
time.
before we leave real quick, I know this is the end of the year and we're celebrating the championship, but just want to thank all you guys. You all work your asses off, and we see how many hours you're in, how early you get in the racetrack, how late you leave, and you guys do an incredible job, and it goes unthanked too often, but it is incredible. To be honest with you, when I was a driver, I had no perspective of how hard you guys work. But on this side, I see how hard you guys work. We talk about it all the time, about the commitment you guys have. Just want to thank all of you. You all should be celebrated on this weekend too, because it's incredible what y'all do for the sport. It's a thankless job from time to time, but you guys kick ass. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, well said, thank you guys.